Awesome. So our recording has started. If you would be so kind to give just a brief introduction of who you are, how you heard about Human Rights Educators USA, and just a little bit about your organization that you're working with.
Sure. I'm Merrill Collins, professional name. My married name is Merrill Collins Chausseblanche, but that's hard to pronounce and hard to spell. So I stuck with my professional name, Merrill Collins. And I'm a musician, and my company is Spiraling Music. And I wrote a piece called Every Man, Woman, and Child I first was introduced to human rights in 1983 by Dr. Carl Schmidhausler, who contacted me. He said, "Do you have any human rights music? I'm having a human rights festival." I said, "No, I have other stuff. Why don't you come over to my house and we'll look at what I have and you can tell me what you're looking for." And at that time, I had never heard of human rights, the UDHR in particular. So I was 33 years old, and it was shocking to me that I had never been taught this in growing up and going to school. And so when I worked on the song, I worked on, it's not easy to set 30 articles to music. They're very wordy and, et cetera. So somehow I got involved with Elsa Stamatopoulos Robbins in creating a paraphrase chart so that it could more easily be taught and that they could more easily be spoken during the bridge of the song. So rather than actually put the articles as lyrics to the composition, I wrote the composition, Every Man, Woman, and Child, with a bridge that can be short or long, depending on how many articles are spoken, what age group, if it's paraphrases or they're having the whole articles, whatever it is. And first started performing it in 1986. And so a lot of my work happened in those years since 1986 through now. And a lot of these organizations sprang up later. And around 2003, I heard about a conference in New York about human rights education, and I flew from here to there to be present and talk about my work. And then I met Felisa Tibbetts and Nancy Flowers and learned about HREA. So that was just very wonderful for me to learn that I'm not the only person out there who cares about this stuff, And so when I find out as I go along that there's other groups like yours, for me, that's wonderful, just very wonderful. And I appreciate your work.
Thank you. That's amazing. And so we touched a little bit on that first question, please describe your human rights education and training work. But if there's anything else you'd like to add to that, please feel free. But if not, we can move on to our second question, which is, what is one aspect of your human rights education work that you are especially proud of?
I'm going to go back a little in time again. In San Francisco, we had a performance, one of my major performances was at Masonic Auditorium, and it was Human Rights Night. A lot of my performances have been on Human Rights Day. And I had the Chinese day school that I was connected to through a church I was working. And I work closely with Pope Flynn, who's an African drummer who teaches after-school programs. And I went over to his after-school program in South San Francisco and taught them. And then we combined the students from the Chinese day school with the South San Francisco after-school program and trained them to perform the piece and had a dinner and walked them up the hill from the church to Masonic. And they opened for Martin Luther King Jr. and Aaron Gundy. And this was like a super proud moment for me that we did that. Then on International Women's Day, March 8th, we were invited to perform at Herbst Theater, which is another major theater in San Francisco. And I do have a video of that performance, which is on YouTube, which I can use as a reference when I'm trying to get other groups engaged. I can use that as, here's an example how it works. And it's a little fuzzy, as I said, technology has improved since then, but I'm very proud of that. I was invited to present my work in Cape Town, South Africa, by the Council for the Parliament of the World's Religions in 1999. And I applied to be listed as gifts of service to the world. And I use that in my resume all the time. I'm very, very proud of that. And we performed there. And what else did we do? Right now, I'm very proud of, I work now locally down the street at St. Joseph Notre Dame High School, where during the COVID, I was busy getting the human rights piece I wrote orchestrated. And I had it orchestrated so that I could gift it to conductors in the hopes that orchestras could become a, component of the output and performance. And it seemed like the most important was the high school orchestration, which I told various leaders who I know personally about, here's the link, but it really takes a lot of effort to get people to take the next step. So when I realized that I was giving people the link to the orchestration and they weren't, opening it, a little light came on that I needed to actually go and print it out and give them a physical copy, which I recently did. And so I gifted it to Paula Sokola at St. Joseph Notre Dame. And the next day I told the principal of the school, and very often the principal of the school is the key to getting something to happen. And they're all very excited. And I said, this has not been premiered. Your school could have the world premiere. And everybody hopped up so I'm very excited about that and very proud about that.
Thank you so much for sharing. Those all sound really amazing, and your current work especially is really exciting. So we would love to continue to hear more about that as updates come along. So on to our third question. Why do you think human rights education and training is important?
There's a lot of things going on that vibrationally, I'm a musician, don't reflect that to our culture. And I think that children and people going to school are, and grown-ups too, they're very impressionable. And a lot of things you see in the news, a lot of the work I did in my life was because I realized the children see the news and it disturbs them, and that they need something to counteract that. So a lot of the programs I started over the years had to do with bringing grown-ups into the environment who do nonprofit work for the good themes like human rights, to talk to the children about what their nonprofit organization is doing. So the children feel that it's a good world, it's a wonderful world, which they might not feel if they see the front page of the newspaper. So it's very important because also if people see something, it gets lodged in their mind as a truth or a reality. And we have to balance all the bad stuff out there with the good stuff. So they have a guide, And when I heard about human rights when I was 33, I was really appalled, as I said earlier, that I hadn't learned it in school. And when I thought about that, it's like my life would have been entirely different as a child, going to school and going through high school and going through college for that matter, if there had been human rights education, because I would have had more balance, for my own soul and spirit. So that's, I think, part of my passion about it is that I feel it's a very important balance to create and put out there. And it's a real thing. The UDHR is a real document, and it really happened. and it's still going on, and there's groups like yours, and so people need to just get that word out.
Absolutely. And I know that Christy and I both agree that that's exactly why, we fight for human rights education and why it's so crucial. So on to our last profile question. How has your connection to Human Rights Educators USA made a difference to you in your work?
I think because I create materials, as I looked at my work over the years, I realized, I can't be the only person on the planet knocking on doors, talking to principals, training some kids as a volunteer, and putting together these do things. I wanted more than that from my work, so I wrote it down in a book. And now we're in the process of revising the book, because it's been on Scribd, or it's been a printout, or it's been a gift I could give somebody else, hoping somebody else would want to do the project. And right now we're upgrading it, so it's going to be print on demand on Amazon and some other places that it's accessible in a broader way. So since my particular personal goal is to have other people have access to all my materials, my connection to HRE USA is that it gives me an outlet to share, hi, here's what I have. And we did a huge amount of work in 2019 because I was frustrated. And I have a close friend who's late 80s, whose birthday, Wilma Love, her birthday is on Human Rights Day. And she's often a person I go to, like a elder, wise person. And I was visiting Wilma, and I said, Wilma, I'm so frustrated. Nobody's picking up on my song. I want people to sing it, and I've even gotten some awards. I'm proud of that. I got 2 awards, Global Peace Song Contest, one for the chant version. I have I'll show you my award. It's really beautiful. It's right behind my piano. Let me see if I could show you. This is for the chant version.
Oh, gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
And Every Man, Woman, and Child Global Peace Song Award 2016 a cappella choral. That's the version that we did on the campus with the choral group, just so you know about that. And the other award, unfortunately, Steve Robertson, who ran the Global Peace Song Awards, they were really into the UDHR. Just the day he called me to tell me I got the hip hop award, which I'm very proud of as well. He was driving around to deliver the awards personally, but he died a couple of days later, and sadly he's in heaven. But so I don't have that trophy. But when I was back to Wilma Love, when I was telling her I was frustrated, she said, well, you need to refresh it, bring it up, do something new, bring it back up to other people's awareness, do something new. And I took the ball and ran with it. So in 2019, I did 12 new versions of Every Man, Woman, and Child. We did the West African High Life was the first one. We did the hip hop version. I did a meditation version with instruments, professional strings people. I did, how many other ones? Anyway, it's a playlist on Spotify, and you could go to Spotify and find it. And so it was kind of like there needs to be something for everybody, realizing that the ballad, the one I had orchestrated, it is a ballad, and not everybody's looking for a ballad, especially kids and high school kids. So I just wanted to put out more of a buffet of ways people could connect to it musically. So the networking is what I love about your groups, because I can say, here's the link, here's the page. Oh yeah, I did a yoga version. And also I'm a voting member in the Grammys group, and I can submit these things for the people that are in the Grammys group so they can review and hear and be aware of that piece of music and vote. I haven't been to date nominated for a Grammy, but people I work with have. So it's just another way that I can make people, it's sort of like a way to bring people to awareness who may or may not have been aware. Yeah, so I can share, basically. It gives me a way to share.
Absolutely. And I think that's so amazing that you have so many versions too, appealing to so many different varieties of people where, you know, reading the articles might not be exactly where they're going to find out about it, but through music, now they're going to know and they're going to learn about the UDHR and its articles. That's amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're really glad to have you part of the network and to continue to share that song and all of the current work that you're doing.
And one connection between the two of you, if that maybe you could just give us a snippet in, is the work that you had previously spoken about at the on campus at the University of California, Berkeley, on the UDHR.
Yeah, and I think that Haley is that, did I say your name right, Haley?
Hallie.
Hallie, thank you. Okay, so Hallie, because you are there and you are in that department, even though I'm not currently employed there, there's no reason we can't repeat that idea.
Absolutely.
I think there's a possibility that Mark Sumner's might still be there in running the choral department. I can check in on that. Rita, is she still there?
I know she's in Berkeley. I think she may have retired from officially the campus. Rita Moran, you're referring to.
Yeah. See, this is what happens if you're as old as me. But there's no reason we can't recreate that if we want to. And I have the background of remembering how I brought it together. I'd be happy to work with you if you'd like to do that again.
That's great. And you were able to bring both the dance and the music departments and do kind of a visual representation on Human Rights Day, which I think is just so fantastic. So it would be wonderful to see if we can pull something like that off again.
Now, on the UC Berkeley campus, as I remember, and it's probably still there was a student group. Aren't there some student groups still?
Yes.
Yes, there are plenty of student groups who I think would be really interested in creating this Human Rights Day performance again, very similar to how you had it performed years ago.
Yeah, and the student groups, they make the posters with the articles and they do the reading. And then the music part is done by the choral group, and the dancers come from the dance department. So it's just it's fun in a way to bring it all together. And then you have a speaker. You invite, a keynote speaker like Rita was. And it's outdoors. And so the public can come. And it can, hopefully it's not a rainy day. And then there's a media department. And in those days we had just like taped video, but if we did it now, you could get a digital, to put on your website and to share with other people and to put it out as, here's an example, what you could do on your campus. And so it's sort of like those spider plants, they grow a plant and the plant grows 5 more plants. And it's like a mother millions plant, they call them, it can go like that, like, hey, have you done this on your campus? Look what we're doing. So, yeah. So
that's great. And the different versions is just a beautiful way of displaying, the original ballad, and then now the notion that you have a hip hop version or a yoga version or meditation. Gosh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. I was hoping when I did that, and did I send you the link to I have a whole page on my website where you click And then it shows you all the versions and the resources, where to get the music, where to get the, how to do this, which right now we're integrating all that into the original book, so that when the new version, the new edition comes out, hopefully by the end of the summer, it will have not just the original curricula for elementary schools or grown-ups. It'll have, here's how you do this with yoga. Here's how you do this with hip hop. Here's how you do this on a campus. It'll have more offering of all that stuff in the next edition. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and I think
go
ahead.
that link. See, I like to share that link because I'm only one person, there's so much I could do. And I think it's appropriate that my time and energy does go into the music. And, and I kind of lose energy sometimes trying to get people to do stuff, wishing that they would, but you're probably in a network of people that want to do stuff. So my role is, here's some materials if you're looking for something to do, And I wanted to get yoga groups to use it's a whole album. It's a very beautiful album. It's called Every Man, Woman, and Child Yoga Flow Suite. And there's 3 movements of 20 minutes each, which is designed. My co-producers were both yoga artists and musicians as well. So we designed it for yoga. I wanted to get yoga groups to do the yoga to the music and videotape it and start a YouTube collection so that people could add to it and in different countries, because I think that would be really a wonderful thing. So another frustration, right, is I couldn't make that happen after the album was out. I would go into yoga studios locally when I would be walking down College Avenue, and I'd say, here's some music, would you make a video? And it hasn't happened to this day. So
I think we have an opportunity because we're going to have, we have our Human Rights Day and 75th anniversary of the UDHR committee. So I think we need to pull you into that one if you're willing, Merrill, because I think what you're doing and with 2023 coming up for the 75th anniversary of the UDHR, I think the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, I think we can make some of these things happen. You've inspired me.
And we have time. So in 2023, we're having the 75th anniversary.
Yes, it's already the 75th.
Wow. Well, that's a big year.
It is.
That's excellent. Wow. That's wonderful. So certainly, I'd be happy to be involved in the creation of that and get some more things going. And not just, now it looks like in this particular group you're working with, it says USA. So it's national, right? It's the United States of America. And the Universal Declaration is in all these languages, so it's international, So that's another beautiful thing for me about the document is it's like when I was working with the Chinese Day School and that YouTube performance, the Chinese students recited the articles in Chinese and then they said them in English. And the parents of the Chinese Day School, most people from that part of the world are real into video. And I was like a little bit startled when they started the performance at Masonic. This was, all of these parents came rushing down to the front of the stage with their video cameras. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, but then I realized there's a part of me that feels bad. I never had funding and I never was rewarded financially for anything. and I put all this time and energy in, and why doesn't somebody buy a license for putting it on TV or something? But there's really no way I could have ever figured that out today anyway. But here's all these parents coming down and documenting this. And then I thought, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, because maybe they're sending it to the grandparents back in China, and they're going to hear the human rights in Chinese. And, I shouldn't feel bad about that. I should be happy. So, yeah.
Your ripple effect, I think, is only beginning. That you don't probably know all of the impact that you've had across the world already, because
Exactly.
I'm remembering now kind of first learning about your every man, woman, and child when I was at the Human Rights Center at the University of Minnesota, and getting copies. And so it's rippling out. And now there's maybe some new ways around Human Rights Day, since we've been doing these celebrations on Zoom. So our last two celebrations, last year, a student class from San Francisco did it in multiple languages. And then the year before on Human Rights Day, actually where Hallie had worked, the student task force of Human Rights Watch and another Generation Human Rights, some young people did it in multiple languages. So I think, yes,
it's very
there's great
beautiful.
opportunity.
Yeah, and I think even though you're representing HRE USA, even like the group I work with down the street at St. Joseph Notre Dame, there's here in Alameda, it's such a huge melting pot. I have students who go home and their parents only speak Mandarin at home. And I think that's awesome. And I have another student whose background is Vietnamese, one of our best singers. We have Korean, we have, of course, African Americans, we have people that are Hispanic. And that's another really critical area to get those human rights going there. Filipinos, we've got all kinds of, I love when people do it, even though we are USA, that they get those other languages in there too. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, as Christy said, coming up on the 75th anniversary too, there's so much potential for different groups, and including UC Berkeley student groups, but expanding outside of that too, for people to use your music and to utilize different ways of advocacy and human rights and performance and music and celebration to advertise the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in all of these different languages. So I think that would be amazing. And we can talk about that a little bit more too, if you are interested in joining that committee. Christy would love to share a little bit more, but we would definitely love to have you working more with these projects and giving your insight.
Oh yeah. And just for a minute, I don't want to forget to mention, because the orchestration, as excited as I am about the high school orchestration, I originally orchestrated it for professional orchestras and gifted it to the conductor of San Francisco Symphony. But it's also on my list. You always have to have an inroad, somebody who knows somebody, because you can't assume if you give somebody something, they'll get the package. But one of my fantasies was having it done in the Hollywood Bowl. Down in LA, to have it, because I know he's from Venezuela, which is another area that needs some human rights upgrades, and I think he would be excited about it. And there's sort of like things are getting ripe, the cause and effect, the problems in the country and all the bad news. People are more interested right now and more looking right now for that type of thing. Like, how do we lift up the negativity that's out there and put it in a higher vibration? So maybe if somebody knows around the country through your network, any conductors of any symphonies, the music is available for the orchestras now. And We didn't yet complete. We were working on an elementary school orchestra. there are orchestras in elementary schools, and
Right.
yeah, so that's still hanging out there on the to-do list. But just keep in mind, as we go forward, it's nice to have orchestras as well as other bands and individuals.